Hi, everyone. I'm Bill Brenner, VP of Custom Content at Cyber Risk Alliance, and I would like to welcome you to this SC Media in Focus episode sponsored by Fortinet. Joining me from Fortinet is John Madison, EVP of Products and CMO. We're going to discuss the convergence of networking and security and why it is so critical today. John, welcome.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So let me start by asking, we're hearing from some vendors that everything is moving to the cloud. What's Fortinet's opinion on this, and what are you hearing from customers?
Well, certainly quite a few things are moving to the cloud. I think, consumption of SaaS is ever increasing, and customers are also moving some of their applications from the data centers to the cloud. But we believe it's still a very hybrid world. So you're not going to move your office to the cloud. You're not moving your factory to the cloud. You're not moving your house to the cloud. Well, some may, I'm not sure. But you're still going to have a very physical world. And so hybrid's really the strategy. And I'll speak to any customer of size, and they say they're going to be hybrid for a long time to come. Some applications, legacy applications, you just can't move to the cloud, full stop. Some have governance and regulatory reasons. So it's going to be a very hybrid world where you're going to have security in the cloud, in the network, and physically present, especially in things like operational technology environments where, again, they can't move that stuff to the cloud, manufacturing, oil and gas, energy, for example.
Mm-hmm. Now, how do you guide customers in securing their hybrid networks? I imagine that this is something that you have clients that are pretty, I think harried is the word I would use. If we look at the last 2 years and that mega rush to the cloud to facilitate remote operations.
Yeah, well, I think the other piece of it is I also hear, coming from some cloud-only vendors, that really you just need the cloud and you need an endpoint, and everything else is irrelevant in between. Again, we think that's not true at all. In fact, the network is becoming very important. I have an expression: nothing is cloud only, everything is network centric. And the network determines the digital experience going forward. And so what's happened with the network, though, it's become larger and expanded, and you've now got more edges there. You've got a WAN edge, a LAN edge, a 5G edge, a cloud edge. And with all these different edges and the expansion of those edges, customers can't take the approach of, let me build a network and then let me secure those edges individually as I go forward. You really need a more converged approach where you build networking and security together for each one of those edges. And so things like secure SD-WAN or secure LAN edge, secure 5G, we're seeing customers now take this approach where they're securing all these edges. And then what they want to do is build a couple of capabilities for the future. One is, again, they want to measure that digital experience. So they want to measure from the endpoint across the network and then into the application, exactly is the uptime good, is the latency tolerable, et cetera, et cetera. And then they want to layer something else on top of that, which is just what we call AI ops, where because it's so important today, if you take, for example, a retail store, if they lose that internet connectivity, their business is down, whether it be taking orders in or whether it be processing credit cards. They could be losing thousands of dollars an hour. And so the future of networks is also what we call AI ops, where you're taking data from the network, from the LAN, from the Wi-Fi, from the ISP, et cetera, and you continue looking to see where things can improve, or if things are going to fail, can you self-heal? So again, the network is, to me, very, very important going forward, as is the cloud, as is on-premise.
So there are a lot of point security products out there that address just one or a few aspects of security. Are you seeing this as a viable strategy long-term?
Well, it's a different problem. So if you think about networking and security convergence, that's one problem. There's a second problem mainly focused on security automation. And that is, over the years, enterprises have collected point product vendors. Yeah, and it used to be because of the different threat vectors. Then it was, protection versus detection. And so they've ended up with maybe 20, 25 security point product vendors. And it's up to them, to be honest, to try and make it work together, to share threat intelligence, to share policy. And then, the end goal is to build that automation because of the speed of the threats. And I think they just come to the conclusion that either cybersecurity vendors don't like working together, or it's just really hard. And so, our approach is more of a platform. And I know everyone says platform is the word of the day. It's not saying let's go from 20 to 30 vendors to one, but let's go from 30 vendors to maybe 5 or 6 platforms that work together. You're going to have to make a balance, a trade-off between some features and functions, but at least then you've got a goal or objective of being able to build some automation in there. And I'm seeing every CISO I speak to talk about this. Gartner talk about it in terms of a cybersecurity mesh architecture. But every enterprise I spoke to have come to the conclusion they just can't keep adding more and more point product vendors. It just makes the situation worse.
Sure. Now, shifting to the threat landscape, what does it take to be able to stop threats faster and more effectively?
Well, we've seen there's a continuous shift in the threat landscape. And most recently, we've seen what used to be state-sponsored APTs appearing in commercial attacks for ransomware. Very sophisticated, a lot of work on the reconnaissance side up front. And then the speed, if someone gets infected, Log4j was spreading 50 to 100 times faster than its predecessor. And so there's no way, a human can really get involved whatsoever to stop that. You need that automation. So you need to be able to, look up front, see if you can, with your detection capabilities, to see if you can stop things which are new. And then if something does get in, you've got to be able to protect in as many places as possible. So updates to the network, to the endpoint, to the application as quickly as possible. And that either slows it down or stops it in its tracks. So, again, it comes back to that automation, but being able to see across as many threat vectors, email, files, endpoints, URLs as possible to stop it in as many places as possible.
Can you give us some examples of solutions Fortinet is delivering that ties into the things we've been discussing?
Yeah, the speed's important. So we just recently released FortiOS 7.2. We have a major operating release every year. That's not just for our core products. It actually extends out across the entire fabric. We've actually added a few new services. And a really good example is what we call inline sandboxing. So for any types of security systems, you've got certain capabilities or services that stop known threats. You know it's a virus, you stop it. And then you've got unknown. And so you're using more behavioral type systems. Sandboxing's such a system that takes a file and extrapolates it out inside a VM to see if that's doing bad behavior. The problem with current systems that sit in the network, yes, the systems that sit at endpoint that detect stuff and stop them. If you're in the network, people have been reluctant to, if they find it to be a bad file, to stop it. In fact, it's already gone into your network and so if you find it bad, then you have to go and track it down if you can, and it could be across multiple places. So our new 7.2 functionality actually will stop the file for you. So again, there's that piece of detection, but also protection. So if you find something, then please stop it. And you have to be pretty confident at that point if you're going to stop things going through, but also you need very high performance. You can't have things waiting around for even a few minutes. It's got to be detected and then protected. Another example of a service there is what we call our inline CASB. There's a lot of, with SaaS services, you're not taking any security into them, but they've got the security. And so our inline CASB capability provides a very granular look at what's going on within the application. So it's not just saying, hey, this is salesforce.com. It's looking inside the directive and the information and the context and giving some sort of security capabilities around data leakage or antivirus. So that was a couple of the services. I think the other capabilities for us is things like SOC as a service, where a lot of customers, even though they've got an MSSP or their own SOC team, are always looking for more help. And so our SOC as a service is a cloud-based system, but also has people sometimes you fundamentally can't replace people and their knowledge and getting things out. And there's an outbreak service inside there. We continue to do the convergence in terms of zero trust, SD-WAN, network firewall, etc. All WAN controllers all sitting at the edge there. And then we continue to extend the fabric, including an ecosystem. So as I said, a while ago, we're not saying we're the only vendor in your network. You have other vendors, you made other investments. So we have about 350 partners that are part of our fabric-ready ecosystem.
Very good. Good summary, good bow to tie on to all of that. Any parting thoughts?
Well, I do think that customers are spending more time now in looking where they want to be in 2 or 3 years. So they kind of want a blueprint. Then they kind of work backwards. They're kind of fed up of just, stopping the hole in the dam with a point product, or just buying something because that's, end of life and I have to replace it. They're looking more for a blueprint and then working backwards on how they get there. And they want a more converged network. They want a more automated security architecture. And so I see a lot more architects, both network architects and cybersecurity architects, coming together and taking a long-term view versus short-term.
Very good. Good place to end it. So great discussion. Thank you, John. And thank you to Fortinet for sponsoring this event. And of course, thank you to our audience for coming to listen. Take care.